All right. Just talk us through this big fat spreadsheet of yours.
Yeah, so a little bit of labour of love. Basically over the last 2 years, it's been refined and refined, and it's not too hard to take week in, week out now. We're just plugging in a whole bunch of CSV files. Um, so the way I've set it up, it's a live spreadsheet. So throughout the week, from as soon as salaries drop, I dump all the data in as things are available, and then I update projections a couple times before Sunday, just because things change and projections change. Like at the moment, the fantasy insider projections, there's whole there. I think Saquon had zero projections, so it's a live document. So generally, the closer Sunday you use it, obviously, the more accurate the data is going to be. And because it's live and it's only got view only access, make sure you make a copy, and then you'll be able to sort it and do whatever you want to it. And then if you stuff it up, you just start it from the master one. Yeah, so I've just quickly sorted the draft stars salaries, so you can look through that.
Sure.
Couple things. I've got the draft king salaries listed right next to it, just because early days, and potentially you guys who listen to other podcasts. Obviously, most of the stuff out there is DraftKings based if it's coming from America, and when they talk about values and stuff like that, it's hard to know whether that would apply to draft stars. And so understanding how DraftKings works, they've got a $50,000 salary cap. We've got a $100,000 salary cap. So generally it's, you double their price to know if it's around the equivalent. And so I've just put some conditional formatting on where if a certain price is cheap for that site compared to the other, it highlights green. So Devontae Adams, for instance, is really cheap on Draft Stars compared to DraftKings value, and yellow is just a slight value, but nothing too much. So just to highlight, all right, especially when they talk about ownership of players that might be popular on DraftKings, might not necessarily be popular here because the salaries might be different. So, for instance, Devontae Adams will probably come out as not heaps popular on roster projections for DraftKings, but with the salary so cheap for draft stars, you got to think, all right, I'm going to bump up his ownership projection with that. Next column is my model that I've been working on throughout the year. Look, it's nothing special, but what it does, it just highlights probably just solid plays for cash, I would say, at this stage. It doesn't factor in ownership, so quite often it highlights good popular players. So obviously Mahomes there is the best quarterback that it's popping at, and Fields is second. So you can use that, have a look at that. Again, it's a work. I'm fairly new to modeling, and so it's just work in progress. Opposition position rank, that's schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed by position. So you can just sort of see, all right, Kansas City wide receivers, they've got a good matchup against Jacksonville. It was Jacksonville 27th in points allowed. So that's fairly. You'll see that metric all over the place. A little bit of conditional formatting as well, just to make it pretty. Then I've just got the stuff you see in Draft Stars, average Draft Stars points, and the form. I think that's the 3-game rolling average. So the last 3 games, how they're going. So you can use that. Then we get onto some median projections. So we've got the first columns from the Fantasy Insider. That's readily available on DraftStars website. And then I've got another set of projections sourced elsewhere. Use whatever you want to. Then both of the reason I've chosen these two is they both also give you ceiling projections. All right. So and when it comes to trying to win a tournament, you're looking for players that have a high ceiling. And so ceiling projections are produced by looking at players' standard deviations on their average point score. So if they're a boom-bust player, they'll probably have a higher ceiling. But if they're just super consistent but get you 10 points every time, they'll have a low ceiling projection. And so they're probably not your tournament picks, maybe cash.
Yeah, I like to use the ceiling projections when I make my lineups and when I crunch my lineups, because I feel like that's I want access to the guys with their ceilings. That's what I want
Best possible.
in that. So I'll go with ceiling projections for that. Although what I won't use ceiling projections for is actually defenses, because I find that can skew the defenses too much.
For sure.
I'll use the median projections for my defenses.
Yep. The next 4 columns are basically, it's almost projected points per dollar based on all 4 of those projections. So it's take the projection, divide it by the salary times by 1,000. And so when we talk about 2x their salary, this is what we're talking about. And so, for instance, it skews in the low price 5K guys. So you can see like Foster Moreau, Juwan Johnson, they're going to have a ceiling that's not actually that big. Like if you look at, they've got a 16 ceiling projection, but because they're only 5K, they pop in terms of, points per dollar. But that's not super valuable if there's lots in that sort of price range. But it's just another piece of the puzzle that's worth looking at when it comes to what's a good play or not. Then we talk about this route data a lot, and when we're talking about pass catches. So my good friend of the show, Tim Abtree, at TAbtree on Twitter, he's someone I go to a lot for data analysis questions, because he's a very smart guy. But what he's been able to gift me is some code that allows me to source this data, which normally lives behind a Pro Football Focus paywall. I haven't sourced it from PFF. I'm not stealing their stuff. I'm taking it from readily available play-by-play and using R to produce these metrics, which is thank you, Tim. But what we see in fantasy football, one sticky stat with receivers is targets per route run. And so if they're on the field running a route, are they earning a target? And it's a little bit better than just pure target share. And so that we look into that a fair bit. And so look, for instance, Tyreek Hill, his route data is outrageous. This is why he's having a historic year. He's out of the team, every time the team passes, he's on the field for 90% of those, dropbacks. And then 30% of them, he's getting targeted. Like, it's outrageous. 37% on the year. They're crazy stats. Mark Andrews, when he's on the slate, he's almost near 40. How much he gets targeted. Then we'll look at some ownership projections. This is my very first week of trying to create ownership projections. They're bad, so don't trust them. I used a linear regression model, and there's clearly at the higher end it kicks up, and so my projections under project the popular plays like Hill, Kelsey, Diggs are very low. Well, I think they'd probably get to 30%, 20 to 30 potentially. And so I've got next to that I normally put in on Saturday or Sunday is a DraftKings ownership projection from elsewhere, and a leverage score that they produce. Leverage scores basically is an indication of whether playing this player is going to put you ahead of the field or not. And so the higher the score, basically the more unique a play it will be, and you want to play more than the field's expected to play them. Whereas if it's below 1, you probably want to play under the fields. It doesn't mean you don't play them, just say if their roster percentage is about 30%, you might want to play maybe 10% of them instead. Again, it's based on DraftKings, so I don't look at it too closely. It's just another thing to just build the picture of the slate, really. Then the betting data, Vegas stuff, over-unders, implied team totals, and the lines all give us good, an idea of the game environment, what to target. Also metrics that my ownership projections are using as part of their model. And then neutral pace rank. Generally, the faster the pace, the more players the team plays in a game, the more fantasy points they score. So in neutral situations, I've got pass. You can go to Football Outsiders or any other place and find pace of play for all sorts of situations. And so, but I've just got neutral there because it applies to most. But for instance, you look at Kansas City, you might want to look at their pace of play for when they've got a over more than one touchdown lead somewhere else. But anyway, that's pretty much it. The other things in there are just stuff that, that's my model calculations that create my model. So, I mean, you can look at them, but you're
not going to get any valuable information from them.
No. No. And it's quite often I'll do, I'll just hide those columns anyway, if I remember. But it's just while I'm still editing is there. But yeah, that's most of it. I don't know, anything if they feel that it.
I think that's pretty much it. I think the key stats that I look for, like I care about the projections and the ceiling projections. That's what I'll use to help crunch lineups. But of course, I'm willing to change them if my gut says otherwise. So caring about that, I think pace is really important to consider stacking. So I really care about that, especially when there's a matchup. So if I sort by over under, that'll automatically sort into the matchups. So you get all these guys here. I'm like, oh sweet. So Kansas City pace of 6 and Jacksonville a neutral pace of 10. I'm like, sweet. That's awesome. So really, really a good. It shows you where the game environments are that you want. So excellent. Oh, Peachy.
What a legend.
Appreciate it.
Just another thing that might be useful, just in case you're not that used to using sheets and filters and stuff like that. If you can filter out positions, so the first column you can deselect. If you just want to look at running backs, just clear all and then just have the running backs on there.
That's it.
Yep. So
so position
play around with filters all the time. But like I said, make a copy of it each week, and then you can go your hardest.
That's it. Alrighty, I think we'll
leave it there.
Leave it there. Thanks for the 2 people who are left watching. Appreciate it. And sweet. All right, Arch. I think that's been fun. That's been good. Hopefully that is helpful for you all if you're keen to jump on the Patreon and support us and get access to this really good tool. It's a really, really useful tool. Sweet.
Beautiful.